Pizza Jaffa's orange rose, microchips us, iPhone cameras us, taco salads us, Torta lavados us, Olive Garden us, White Foster us, Sabra Hamas, Hasbara sus.
Hello, and welcome to Bad Hasbara, the world's most moral podcast. What's up, everyone? It's Matt Lieb here. So glad that you guys are joining us for another kick-ass episode of this podcast, which has taken over my entire life. Just a reminder, give us 5 stars in a review over on the Apple Podcast app, and go on Spotify and subscribe there and leave a comment under the episode. You can do that now. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe bell and shit. I don't know what it does, but people say to hit the bell, so we're going to do that. Just please do that. If you want to support this podcast, patreon.com/badhasbara. It's in the ticker. I put it there in the ticker. So support us. And finally, if you're in Sacramento, March 17th, that's a Sunday at 7 p.m., please come to the Sacramento Punchline and see me and my wife, Francesca Fiorentini. We're going to be co-headlining at the Sacramento Punchline. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of great people are going to be there. We're going to have a great comic opening for us, and it's just going to be a good time. So please come. If you're not around, tell your friends who live in the Sac area or in the just general SF Bay area. It's not that far. Or if they just live in the West Coast and they have like a wife or a husband who's a flight attendant, they can fly for free. So fly to Sacramento and see me and Francesca do stand-up at a club that's in a mini mall next to a mattress store. It's a lot of fun. Please go do that. Okay, I am bringing in my sometimes co-host and one of the best people that I know. He is back. He did a little European vacation. I saw the pictures. It looked like a lot of fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Maté is back.
I'm still grooving to the theme song.
Yeah, hell yeah. Oh, I thought you were doing Twilight Zone for a second.
Well,
yeah.
It's,
It's a similar.
It's it's similar. The one note is different. Da 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 da
Yeah.
da. That's the Twilight Zone. This is da 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 da.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. See, that's how I know you're an actual musician. You can hear the difference in one note. You're just like, I know that. I know the difference. How you doing, buddy?
Baby. How are you, Matt? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm, just like, living my life, trying to do this, trying to hold down 1,000 different jobs at the same time and not lose my mind and raise my baby. So things are normal and good. That's how things are here. Yeah.
When I hear myself say, I'm good, then I remember
that you're
what
lying?
Time we're living in. And I'm like, well, not that I'm lying, but that I don't know, I'm generating that answer. It's not like, you have to sort of,
you're not actually checking in
some goodness.
Oh,
I'm not
I like
fully
that.
checking in all the way. I'm not checking in all the way deep down.
Right. But I like that you're you're trying to put out positive energy into the world.
I am. I guess what I'm saying, when I'm saying I'm good, I'm aligned. I'm feeling like, and given the circumstances, I'm being who I want to be, who I intend to be, and I'm doing what I can and doing what I do, and that generally speaking, things are, I'm not feeling stuck in the way that I sometimes might be. So, and unlike last time we recorded an episode, I'm not exhausted. I was really tired last time.
Oh, were you?
The second last time, the one with Noah Kasman, I was doing all right. Does your wife? Do you guys know Kids in the Hall, obviously, right?
Oh, of course, big fans.
Are you aware of the character Francesca Fiore?
Yes, very much so. I bring it up a lot. Francesca Fiore. Yeah.
And of course that makes you Bruno Pancione.
That makes me Bruno Pancione. I never realized. That's right. If you're not familiar with the Canadian sketch comedy legends Kids in the Hall, you should really check them out. I mean, listen, they got so many great sketches. Who's to blame for the rain? Anyways, so I'm glad you're doing good. I'm feeling okay. You know what I would like? I would like it if I could just do the podcast that I want to do in my life, and then go on the road and do comedy. But I also have a day job where I produce other people's podcasts, and I don't want to do that anymore, guys. So if you want to help me out, you want to help out the world. No, it's just me. Subscribe and shit. I don't fucking know. But listen,
Absolutely. Make this guy's life easier. Make it easier for him to do what he loves and what we love. Isn't this guy don't we love him, folks? Doesn't he help us out in this time? Isn't he doing an essential service?
Hey, I'm doing something. I don't really know what it is that I do, but people seem to like it. So I'm just grateful for that. Listen, there's people who are in a lot worse positions than me. And I am grateful, and I'm grateful to you for being here, dog. I love having you, and I love also having our guest. We have a third chair in the Bad Hasbara pod today. The third chair, the most moral guest, and this guest is a historian of Palestine. If you haven't seen his appearances on other people's podcasts, they've been really great, really informative, really just fascinating guy, very smart. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone else, welcome Zach Foster.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt and Daniel.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, dude.
What is going on? Great to be here.
Yeah. How about you? You feeling aligned?
I'm feeling very aligned. Matt, did you work in tech? Did you work in business? Let's get aligned.
Dude, I'm the
one who said it.
Yeah, no. I worked at a tech startup for a year, and the startup was when you go on like Amazon, like watching Amazon Prime, and while you're watching the movie, it'll tell you what actor is on screen. You know that? I worked at a
currently speaking, Tom Cruise as this
character.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I worked at a company that was like, we're gonna do that, and I remember. So my job was watch movie, make sure guy on screen is guy we say it is, and I was like, this is a dream job. So that's my one experience working at a tech office. So as far as I know, tech jobs are when you see movie all day.
I can't remember that. I think there was. I seem to remember. I don't remember exactly who the mix-up was, but I was watching one of those movies with that feature, and they just got one actor completely wrong. It was like
it was Ice-T, but they said it was Ice Cube.
Wallace Shawn. Wallace Shawn was on screen, but they said it's DMX or something. Like I can't remember, but it was something ridiculously. I would love to hear
Wallace. I would love to hear Wallace Shawn sing "X Gon Give It to You." X Gon Give It to You. That's my impression of him.
I mean, basically, get at me, dog. I mean, actually, really, it's basically the. I mean, isn't that the thing? Is get me. This is, after all, how I think Rough Riders roll.
That is. But Zach, you are someone who I've seen a lot of your tweets, and I've seen a lot of your appearances. And when I asked you to be on this podcast, you sent me an old poster of a stand-up comedy show that we were both on in San Francisco. So I have to ask, wait, do you still do stand-up?
I'm a retired stand-up comedian at this point in my life.
Fair.
I will eventually come out of retirement and return to the stage when the correct time presents itself, but that time has yet to come.
Okay, all right, yeah, you're waiting. You're waiting in the wings. You're gonna figure out your time of when you're gonna just start busting out those jokes. I mean, I was like shocked at it because like it was an older poster. It had like kind of all the Bay Area classics, like at least if you were in the open mic scene in the Bay Area comedy scene in like circa 2013, I believe.
I think it was like 2017 or 18, but yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh man.
Could have been the same people. It could have been the same people in the open mic scene in 2013 as 2018. That would not surprise me.
Yeah, this probably definitely is. But so I wanted to ask, you started. When did you start? When did this start becoming something that you were interested in? I'd love to hear about your history. I mean, your own personal history would be interesting too. About like, if you grew up with Zionism. You're Jewish. Am I correct about that?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Y-
So I'd
Yeah,
love to
that's
hear
right. Yeah,
your personal history.
totally. Yeah, I grew up Jewish. I grew up very Jewish. Went to
Ooh.
Jewish schools. Went to Jewish Zionist summer camps, Jewish Zionist youth groups. Went to Israel with my Jewish Zionist youth group.
Can I ask
Um,
which Jewish Zionist youth group? Because I was in one too.
oh yeah, multiple. So I was first part of Kadima when I was in middle school,
Yeah.
and then I was part of both BBYO as well as USY. Don't ask
Okay.
me what those letters stand for.
Well, bring
United Synagogue.
Mhm.
Yeah, bring your
bring
own,
your own
what
occupation.
you can-
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think BBYO was like the reform or more secular Jewish Zionist youth group, and then USY was the conservative with a capital C, conservative Jewish youth group. The latter was the group that sent me to Israel when I was 15, 16.
Mm.
On one of these Hasbara trips. You go to Poland for a week, you tour the concentration camps, Auschwitz, Sobibor,
Hmm.
etc. You're taught that, and then you, after a week of a hellish week of sorrow and just you're
Trauma.
crying for a whole trauma and just driving 2 hours into a forest and just seeing a mound of
Right.
ash. Then you're taken directly to Israel, where you're taught that this is the solution to 2,000 years of Jewish persecution and suffering.
Mm.
It's such a great pedagogy. It's like teaching history antonymically, like you get like opposites together. It'd be like, this is the good part of history, and this is the bad part of history, and the good part of history solved the bad part of history.
Yeah. Yeah. Famously.
Such nuance and depth and sophistication to that way of teaching.
Yeah. No, I like when things
It's
both black and white. That's all the colors.
Yeah, so that was a fun trip, and that got me super interested in Israel.
Mhm.
At that time, I don't think I knew what Palestine was. I don't think I had ever met a Palestinian, despite having spent 5 weeks in the Holy Land.
Wow.
And so that got me interested in Israel, and so started learning more, studying more, taking Israel classes at university, and then even spent a semester in Jerusalem as an undergrad, where I first encountered Palestinians.
Yeah.
Right, almost to my surprise, to my shock. Right, I thought I was going to, the holy city of Jerusalem to experience all that Jerusalem has to offer, and was rudely awoken when actually
Jerusalem had too much to offer. You're like, yeah.
I was like, wait, how come the Arabs also make falafel? That's interesting. That's really curious.
Yeah.
Wow, and the
cultural
Arabs
appropriators.
Yeah, why'd they steal it from the Jews?
Get your own food.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the entry point for me, and that led me to do a month-long trip in the Balkans on a kind of a trip called Abraham's Vision, which is now defunct, but it was a group of half American Jews, half American Palestinians traveling around the Balkans for a month, trying to de-exceptionalize Israel-Palestine, trying to learn how people, trying to learn how ethnic groups are in conflict around the world. Yeah.
I'm curious, Zach, like, with your historical lens looking back now, what did that reveal? Because I love hearing about de-exceptionalizing. I mean, that's like a out of left field, but so obvious when you think about it. It's the opposite of what I was joking about with the birthright kind of thing.
Right.
Putting things in context. And this conflict in particular it has such a gravitational pull, and it can seem so exceptional. And that's important in some ways to understand the particularities, but you also get into the places that I hate getting into, where people like, how can the Jews go from victim to victimizer, or like blah, 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 and not seeing the bigger picture. So what do you see as the the universals? What do you see as the particularities? And what's the value in that perspective?
Yeah, obviously there are important and significant differences between the conflicts in the Balkans in the 90s and Israel-Palestine.
Sure.
But there are also some very interesting similarities and parallels. One of which is, the Serbs talk about Kosovo the same way Israelis talk about Judea and Samaria, as they would call it.
Interesting.
The occupied Palestinian West Bank, right? So, the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, right? It's like, really? And then you go to Kosovo and you're like, why are there these little Serbian enclaves, militarized, like these little neighborhoods where they have special privileges and special rights, and they're kind of scattered all around Albania and Kosovo.
Right.
And it's just like, wow,
Are they
that's
settlers?
Listen, I mean, that's a very politicized word, Daniel. No, they are. They are in fact settlers, right? So Serbia basically invaded and conquered Kosovo, the same way Israel invaded and conquered the West Bank and established colonies in the West Bank the same way Serbia established colonies in Kosovo. So it's a very similar dynamic. So yes, they are in fact settlers. That's a good word to use to describe them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just so for my own clarity, so that trip, who organized that trip to de-exceptionalize the Israel-Palestine conflict?
So there was an organization which I believe is now defunct, but it was known as Abraham's Vision, and it was founded by some Bay Area Jews and Palestinians, if I'm not wrong. There's a guy by the name of Aaron Han Tapper. Maybe you're familiar with him. And there is Ziad Abu Rish was one of the staff members on that trip. He's a historian, I believe, somewhere in Ohio. He's based. But it was a kind of a joint venture of Israelis and Jewish Americans, Jewish Israelis, Palestinians.
I see. So this wasn't a Hasbara trip. This was something where you actually you were learning about these other conflicts as they did actually relate, not as some sort of excuse as to why to normalize this type of conflict.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, many of the organizers of this trip were themselves graduates of Seeds of Peace. And Seeds of Peace, this movement in the 90s, bring Israelis and Palestinians together and talk about falafel and hummus and how we all, oh wow, Judaism and Islam have so much in common. But the problem with
Oslo's here, folks. Everything's going to be great. Let's share recipes.
But as you well know, the problem with that approach is that Israelis go back to their lives where they have political rights, where they vote for the government that controls their lives. Palestinians go back to their lives where they're occupied, where they're living in a state of apartheid, where they do not vote for the government that controls their lives.
Right.
And so actually what Seeds of Peace was doing is just papering over, was making Israelis feel good about occupation and apartheid. Palestinians go home feeling like total shit. And so Abraham's Vision was a response to that and said, no. We're putting politics front and center. We're gonna hash out these issues. We're gonna talk about politics. We're gonna talk about the Nakba. We're gonna talk about occupation, etc.
Yeah.
Seeds of Peace sounds to me like a legitimate use of the word normalization, which is a word that gets tossed around a lot. I've been accused of it, and I would take it personally, except I've seen some of the most radical and wonderful Palestinian voices that I know also accused of it. It's kind of a knee-jerk thing for anyone who, I don't know, speaks the country who shall not be named's name. But when you describe Seeds of Peace, that I get that normalization vibe of basically papering over the material differences, acting as if they don't matter, trying to jump to some sort of vibes-based conclusion, and in the process erasing very real material power differentials, which would have to be rectified in any peaceful situation.
Yeah.
I think Seeds of Peace suffered from fundamentally the same problem that Oslo suffered from, which was that you have the Israeli government is both party to the Oslo Accords, right? So, and the Seeds of Peace would be that Jews are basically have all the power,
right?
But basically Israel has all the power. They're both party to this agreement, but they're also the enforcer of the agreement,
right?
And then they can also change the rules of the agreement. So
Darth Vader style, pray don't change them further. Yeah.
So, who wouldn't want to play in a soccer match where your opponents get to...
Is Darth Vader.
I hope...
I'm keeping this going.
I hope so, Abbas, for your sake. Ben Gvir is not as forgiving as I am.
Man. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting Daniel, you brought up, this idea of normalization as a pejorative, especially, in bringing up the name, just in like some people have said it for, saying Israel rather than the Zionist entity or something, which is like
No,
kind
it's
of
actually
like,
it's the crumbling Zionist settler colonial entity, which is super catchy.
yeah, it just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
And which is like, for me, I always, I try to be sensitive to I would say what I would call a general sentiment around verbiage or whatever, not like
Yeah.
around language, because everyone does have like different lines and whatnot. And I don't want to change the entire way I speak based on a single tone policeman, because ACAB includes tone policing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Zach, as someone who's like an academic, as someone who is a historian, who understands the history of the region, of Israel, of the Zionist entity, whatever you want to call it, I want to ask, is the preferred nomenclature Israel, or is it not real?
Yeah, it's not real.
which is the one I should use? Because Israel, I feel like, is like, it's almost a good pun, but every time I see it, it just reminds me of when people would call him a Barack Obama, and it'd be like, it doesn't hit.
I always preferred Matt Christman's O'Bungler.
Yeah, O'Bungler is great because it's got that sense of using it ironically, but it's also fun earnestly.
It also makes me think of. It also sounds like the Hamburglar to me somehow.
Yeah,
which is a nice image.
Rubble. You're
Rubble.
stealing my thunder here. My best Israel-Palestine joke in that set that I sent to you was, I think it was something to the effect of, Israel is not so much of a pal of Stein.
Well, listen, we all have our strengths. I mean, in a more serious note, talking about just the use of the nation's name, for example, is something that you've gone into in terms of the Hasbara myths on the history of the word Palestine or Palestinians, or just like, the total erasure of the people in this kind of like broad movement of delegitimization of, the rights of these individuals. Can you speak more on that and kind of the way that Hasbara is used today?
Yeah, so there's been 100-year-long history. It dates all the way back to the 1920s, by the way, of this desire among first Zionists and then Israelis to pretend as though these people who are living in Palestine before the Zionists showed up, to pretend as if A, they never called the place Palestine, and B, they never called themselves Palestinians. This is critical to the Zionist story, because the Zionist story is all about creating a Jewish state in Palestine, a Jewish state in Palestine. And, wouldn't it be great if these people were Arabs, or maybe they were Southern Syrians, or maybe they just called the place Syria? That means we don't have to share this land, because these people may as well just go to all these other Arab countries.
They're squatters.
Right.
So this is the narrative. It's all fiction, right? In fact, Palestinians were calling themselves Palestinian. We have evidence, at least, that they were calling themselves Palestinian before Zionism was even a thing.
As were the Jews of Palestine, weren't they? They were Palestinian Jews, just as Syrian Jews were Syrian.
Yeah.
So the word Palestinian in English has also a very interesting history. In the 19th century, everything and anything in Palestine was just described as Palestinian. So Palestinian Jewry, because you had Jews obviously living in Palestine, Palestinian plants, and it was also, and then after 1920, when the British established a mandate for Palestine, then the British in 1925 published this pamphlet where they talk about Palestinian citizenship and Palestinian nationality. And they're very explicit. They say Palestinian citizenship applies to Jews, Muslims, and Christians, not just Muslims and Christians. They're like all three. responding to because the word has already come into use in Arabic and in English to refer to primarily the Muslim and Christians of Palestine, not so much the European Zionist immigrants.
Right.
Question and a comment, Zach.
Yeah.
Number one, you talked about the Palestinian plants. Let me put this to you, Mr. History Wise Guy. Was the cherry tomato listed?
Mm-hmm.
If not, it's checkmate. Sorry, Zionism wins.
Was it in there?
Was it in there?
That was one of Gaza's number one exports, if I'm not wrong. The cherry tomato.
Was it really?
I believe it was.
Are you serious?
I think the residents of Naples would disagree. The Vesuvian cherry tomato, they claim that they invented that. But it was one of Gaza's exports when?
If I'm not wrong, prior to Israel's siege on Gaza, which began really in 2005, 6, 7. I mean, it began really going all the way back to 1990.
Okay, but you're not saying that Palestinians invented the cherry tomato, because if you say that, I will kill myself.
That's right.
That's a very good question. I don't know who invented the cherry tomato.
Oh, okay, good. Israel did.
Israel claims to. It's in the theme song to this. It's in the theme song to this podcast.
It's in the theme song to my life, bro. If they didn't invent the cherry tomato, then I don't know what's real.
I was at your wedding. It was in your wedding vows.
That's right. I pledge to love you, honor you, keep you safe. Israel invented the cherry tomato.
That's right. But here's my comment. Just to interject, because on this topic of the name Palestine, I saw the funniest talking point.
Yeah.
And for a while, like a number of these Hasbarats on Twitter were saying it. They're like, and then Michael Rappaport, I think, was saying it. It's like, all right, you geniuses. How do you say Palestine in Arabic? You can't. There's no P in Arabic. They say
Daniel.
B. And I said to them, great. Why don't you go ahead and say Jew, Jerusalem, or Judea in Hebrew? You incredible moron.
It's not just
Yehuda,
Rappaport.
Yehudim, Yerushalayim.
You have Israeli members of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, saying the same thing, right? So you don't need to cite idiots like Rappaport. You can actually cite Israeli politicians voted into office who say the same thing. By the way, how is it that Egyptians say Egypt? Because there's no P in Arabic, so apparently Egyptians aren't from Egypt because
they're from Egypt.
It's almost as if words like place names are different in different languages.
It's the funniest argument, but I have a video of it.
Palestine, the only country in the world that was already occupied before it ever existed. It's also the only country in the world where its people cannot pronounce the first letter of their own country's name. They simply don't have that in their alphabet. Just like if the French wouldn't have had the F, that could be sadly mistaken for a salad dressing. Or if the Russians wouldn't have had the R, or if the British wouldn't have had the B.
Instead of trying to rewrite history, try writing a better future, make Hamas surrender, bring back our hostages, end 100 years of jihadist war against the Jews, and stop fucking lying about the alphabet. This woman exemplifies the Israeli approach to irony, which is they can't do it. They have to lapse into a kind of campy sarcasm that deflates any possibility for making any headway in making a point.
Cogent point. I mean,
That's
like especially when you can't name all those countries, the B in Britain, the F in France, and then be like the J in the in Yahadut, like these guys, they cannot process. And here's the thing, I don't even believe. Go ahead.
You know the Israeli national anthem, right? Hatikva.
Yeah.
Nefesh Jehudi. That's how it goes.
That's
right?
how it goes. Yeah. And
Yeah,
my
yeah,
favorite
Jehudi.
my favorite song, in Hebrew, Jerusalem of Gold, that goes Jerusalem. Yeah.
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Shelzad. But like,
You guys know that in the 1980s, Israel actually banned use of the word Palestine in Palestine.
Right.
And in fact, the Bank of Palestine, which was a bank in Gaza, was shut down when Israel occupied Gaza in '67. And when the bank was set to reopen after a 14-year hiatus in 1980-81, the Israeli military said, "Okay, fine, we'll let you keep the name Bank of Palestine because it was grandfathered in, but no other institutions or organizations or societies or companies could use the word Palestine in its name because, of course, that would be endangering Israelis and Jews." And I just thought to myself, guys, like Palestine, like just take cover.
Yeah.
I don't. Like,
you're hurting me.
It's the Candyman of place names.
Yeah, no, say it 3 times into a mirror, and then you get to own someone else's home.
You're gonna get smacked in the face by my saliva.
Yeah,
that's when the watermelon symbol took root, right, in the 80s, as a way of getting around that.
Well, that's actually another great point. That was for a different reason, because they not only banned the name Palestine, but they also banned paintings made from, or any artwork that used those 4 colors: red, green, black, and white. And in fact, Fatih Rabin, who was just recently murdered by the Israeli military in Gaza last week, okay, after living for decades and decades and decades under Israeli military occupation, finally was murdered just a week ago. But in 1982, Fatih Rabin painted a painting using those 4 colors and sat 6 months in an Israeli prison for that.
Wow. It's fucking crazy. And just like, to me, it's just that you can draw such a clear parallel between any kind of fascist regime that tries to erase history, including the Nazis trying to erase Jewish history, during the Holocaust. I mean, not to quote a movie instead of something like historical, like a doc or something, but like it reminds me of Eamon Gareth in Schindler's List talking about, we're erasing Jewish history. Today that history ends. It never happened. Like that whole scene, it just feels so disgustingly similar, because you just see, this delegitimization become so normalized that people will use arguments like there's no P in the Arab alphabet, and not even not even think about it, not even consider how stupid of an argument that is. It becomes a part of the narrative,
It's not just the name Palestine. It's not just the 4 colors: green, black, red, and white. It's everything about Palestinian identity and Palestinian culture and Palestinian history. In the past 5 months, the Israeli military has obliterated every single historical and archaeological site in Gaza.
Wow.
They've demolished the Gaza Municipal Archives. They destroyed Salim al-Rais's antique shop, which I had the fortune and privilege of being able to visit very recently, and bought hundreds and hundreds of documents off him, which, as far as I know,
you were in Gaza weeks before October 7th, right?
That's right.
Wow.
And bought about 600 documents off of him, which, as far as I can tell, are the last vestiges of that archival collection, which was probably the largest private collection of documents related to Palestinian history and all of historic Palestine was obliterated by the Israeli military. They're trying to erase everything. They go into the archives and they conceal documents. By the way, documents that were previously open. They're going in, purging the archives of any evidence that Israeli committed war crimes in 48 or in 67. They destroy Palestinian homes in order to, in 48, to prevent them from returning, to prevent people from even knowing that there were Palestinian villages here.
Right.
It's a complete erasure of an entire people.
And it's very it's calculated that way. I mean, they understand, as the Nazis did, that culture is a repository of memory, and it reminds me of that line from The Wire. I like to use Wire quotes on this podcast as much as possible because I'm trying to butter Matt up. You remember what Brother Mouzon said to his bodyguard? You know what the most dangerous thing is in America?
Yeah.
And he says, basically a Negro with a library card.
Yes. Yes.
And the most dangerous thing to Israel is Palestinians' memory, because their memory
Yes.
is their connection to the land to which they belong, as opposed to Israel, which wants the land to belong to them.
Right.
It's their connection to indigeneity, and culture is a kind of architecture that allows memory to transmit itself from ledor vador, as we say in Hebrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
From generation to generation.
Right.
And they think somehow that someday the day will come where they can actually obliterate that. And it's galling and gutting and horrific that what they're doing, but they're not going to succeed no matter what they do.
Yeah.
You are. There was a Nakba law passed, I believe it was 2011 in Israel, and I believe the law stated that you could not receive any public funding if we're commemorating the Nakba. If your organization or society was commemorating the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians in 1948, you would be denied public funding. And in 2021-22, Israel also declared 6 Palestinian NGOs terrorist organizations, which turned out to be obviously false, right? This is just Israeli nonsense. And the EU, a few months later, basically said, actually, these are human rights organizations documenting human rights violations and terrorist actions by the state of Israel. But it's all part of the same initiative, which is to erase Palestinian memory, to erase Palestinian civil society, to press Control Alt Delete on the Palestinians.
Yeah. Now
it also works. It also works on the Israeli population, because if you convince, if you can convince your people that you're not destroying anything beautiful.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. The beauty of Palestinian culture, the human resourcefulness and what culture is indigenous and local, but it also has universalist potential, because people might relate to what if they understood the lyrics of Palestinian lyrics. My God, I've been to some concerts here in Brooklyn where they projected the lyrics on the walls. Just the absolute sensual love of that land and the way it's related to courtship and fragrances and the plant life and the animal life and all this kind of stuff. Any human being with a beating heart and any art in their soul might be stirred by that. And Israelis cannot know that Palestinians are human like that. They cannot know, because if they knew, they wouldn't have such an easy time consenting to this.
Yeah, and it feels like that. I think one of the more shocking and disgusting parts about that attempt to dehumanize Palestinians is that it is not just something that is done for the sake of the Israeli psyche, and putting their minds at ease at living in this, complete and living under apartheid and having to change your narrative in order to accept that. It's that you're expected to, as a Westerner, as a diaspora Jew, as just someone who lives in the United States, just anyone. You're expected to go along with it. You're expected to also see them as nothing but a collection of squatter Arabs, and just that attempt, to do that, to make that, it all seems to be, at this point, just it seems to be expected of people. It seems to be expected, and to stray from that immediately gets you tarred as being an anti-Semite, as being someone who hates Jews,
which makes being a historian a subversive thing to be.
Yes,
if you're going to do your job.
It's funny because even within Israel, they don't like calling a Palestinian Israelis Palestinian, right? They're called Arabs. They're Arab Israelis.
That's right. Arab Israelis.
Because, part of this strategy of erasing the idea that these people have a connection to Gazan Palestinians and West Bank Palestinians. So you want to sever, divide and rule, create divisions. That makes it much harder for Palestinians in all of historic Palestine to feel a shared identity, a shared a sense of Palestinianness.
Mhm.
And in fact, even media outlets like Haaretz, and maybe saying it after October 7th wouldn't surprise people, because after October 7th, Haaretz has basically turned into a mouthpiece of the Israeli military.
Right.
Even though I think before October 7th, there was this a perception, false or not, that it was sort of represented the Israeli left.
Right.
I think that perception is gone. But
hasn't Haaretz kind of on the margins of their reporting done a little bit of, well, maybe the things that were told about October 7th weren't true? Like, they've gone after the gray zone while corroborating a lot of what the gray zone, went ahead and revealed.
Sure.
Look, if you land on, let's get back to Haaretz in a second. But even a media outlet like Haaretz, according to Sally Abed, who she mentioned this in a podcast, and honestly, this was breaking news to me, but was not reported about by anybody else. Mentioned
Standing Together, yeah.
From Standing Together, that's exactly right. She mentioned she submitted an article to Haaretz, and she called Palestinians inside Israel. She called them Palestinians, and the Haaretz editorial staff changed it to Arabs.
Wow.
And I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
how are you? This is like, that is honestly just total erasure. They're
Yeah.
complicit in the erasure of the Palestinian people. If a Palestinian Israeli in her own article wants to call herself a Palestinian, you're saying, no, you're not allowed to call yourself Palestinian? That's just fucking insane.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, go ahead, Daniel. Yeah.
Only that, the word erasure gained a lot of traction in the 2010s inside of social justice circles.
Sure.
And any of these words, which come down from ivory tower circles and become popularly used, can become a kind of jargon that you can start to tune out at a certain point, because they
Yeah.
can start to sound hyperbolic or overheated. Of
Mhm.
course, the people who are using them really, they mean them quite seriously, but it's a little, but in this case, this is a case where you get that
Yeah.
rhetorical erasure
Yes.
is a precursor to literal erasure,
Yeah.
and the other thing I'll say is that it kind of ruins one of my favorite 80s Eurotrash pop songs, A Little Respect by the group Erasure.
Yeah.
For
And
me,
it ruins a little bit of ruins my favorite solo Tom York album, The Eraser. But
we need to remake that. Who is it? Cronenberg, Lynch made Eraserhead. We have to make Eraserhead.
Eraserhead, yeah. Just getting back to what Daniel, you were mentioning about kind of Haaretz's positioning within the discourse, so to speak, and either both in Israel and outside of Israel. The perception outside of Israel of Haaretz is that it is the the New York Times of Israel. It's the one that is
Not a
the
compliment.
Yeah, not well. The people saying it think it's a compliment, and I'm like, I sort of agree with you.
Actually,
I'd rather be called the New York Post of Israel at this point.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. At least the fucking headlines will be punny. Yeah, but yeah. So I would love to hear what you have to say about that, Zach, with regards to the work that is done at Haaretz, and how closely aligned it is with the military state there, and whether or not it gets too much credit for occasionally being like, sometimes we do bad, or if it's if it deserves that credit.
Well, first of all, let's state an important point, which is Haaretz does allow journalists like Gideon Levy, like Amir Hass,
Yes.
to publish what they want. So this is not to say that every single thing published under the Haaretz name is propaganda. No, there's serious journalism taking place there, and there are also opinion pieces that you would very clearly identify as very sympathetic to the Palestinians, and essentially calling out Israeli society for being a genocidal society, which is basically every piece that Gideon Levy has written in the past few months is basically saying, look, our society has turned genocidal.
Right.
So they will publish that stuff. But at the same time, if you just land...
Gideon Levy, who has to walk with bodyguards wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... That doesn't surprise me at all. But I didn't know that though. That's very interesting. If you just flip open the Haaretz landing page, I mean, it's, think back to like, it's sort of like, it's kind of like you got this big war ticker, the number of Israeli hostages, like, the number of how many Israelis died on October or were killed on October 7th, basically obviously centering Israeli victims, and completely ignoring and omitting Palestinian victims. That is the general vibe. And there was even, I tweeted about this maybe a week or two ago, but at one point I just loaded the homepage and it was literally like 10 out of the 11 stories, that the first 10 out of the 11 stories I'm scrolling through are basically like, Israeli military, achieved success in its Operation Khan Yunis, basically regurgitating Israeli military spokesperson, regurgitating Israeli military propaganda, citing the Israeli military as if it's a reliable source rather than pure fucking propaganda. I mean,
did you clock what they said about the flower massacre the other day?
Oh, yes.
I didn't see.
What Haaretz said about it, or what? Oh no, I haven't seen. I have not seen what Haaretz said about it, but I have seen what the IDF has tweeted about it, which we will get into very soon.
Yeah.
So I think Haaretz obviously it's clearly torn, but also if you listen to the Haaretz podcast, I don't know if you've listened to that podcast. They have an English language pod.
I need to. I didn't. Right now I'm stuck on trying to get through Elon Levy's podcast, Israel, the State of a Nation, and
that fucker. The fucker has a podcast.
He in the game, baby.
Kendall Roy Levy has a podcast.
Yeah, he in the game.
Did you see his pep rally for Gen Zers?
He's my God, Gen Zionist.
Let's make Gen Z Zen Zionist. And there's like a point in the video where he does this, like he like puts his finger to his ear, like I can't hear you, and it's the most Kendall Roy ass shit I've ever seen. It's like L to the OG, like hello fellow kids, like Zionism's cool, like I am so in touch.
Yeah, he just wants his Twitter to be fire. That's all he wants.
Well, he killed a kid. He's got something to hide.
Wait, Kendall did. I was like, what? Tell me more about Elon. But no, I have not listened to the Haaretz podcast. Tell me about it.
I mean, I would say it took them maybe 3 months after October 7th to say anything other than pure Israeli military propaganda. I mean, that was a podcast I actually listened to almost religiously. I mean, generally speaking, I thought before October 7th, actually, it was relatively insightful. They bring on people who have varied opinions. After October 7th, it just turned into basically, they bring on an Israeli military spokesperson. Oh, the military has achieved its mission in Khan Yunis. We've killed 5,000 Hamas terrorists. And the host just nods and smiles, and there's no pushback, and there's no critical approach at all.
Yeah. It's Pod Save Israel. Yeah. Yeah.
And look, they 95% of Israelis, according to a January 2024 poll, either we believe the Israeli military is using the appropriate amount of force in Gaza or not enough force.
Yeah.
Okay, 95%, of Jewish Israelis held that view. And Haaretz is very much a Jewish Israeli publication, so obviously they're going to reflect that kind of mainstream view within Israel, which is basically pro-genocide.
Yeah.
Comment and a question. It takes me back to the thing that radicalized me to begin with at age 15, which was Noam Chomsky documentary Manufacturing Consent. And the key observation of that I've never lost is that it's actually the liberal side of the spectrum that gets to set the bounds of acceptable debate. The New York Times is the dangerous one, because it basically lets people think that they have good values and that they're thoughtful and they think about things very deeply.
Right. The unbiased arbiters of truth.
That's right, with a moral conscience, right?
Yes.
Wrestling with the legacy of Vietnam, or like agonizing about Iraq. But when it comes down to it, in the crunch, in the moment of truth, they'll absolutely go along with it. And when it's way too late to make a difference, then they'll start stroking their chins and be like, maybe this and that. As long as it's speculative, and as long as their opposition to the mainstream hegemonic narrative can make no difference, it's more insidious and this is why I find liberals more nauseating than conservatives, who at least have the
100%.
courage of their antisocial sociopathic convictions.
Yes.
My question is, and maybe it's just sort of a small point, but speaking of Israeli media, is 972 Mag still a factor?
972 is, in my view, the best Israeli publication, period. The reporting is excellent. There was in November, a piece by Yuval Abraham, who just recently won that award in Berlin for the documentary.
That anti-Semite Israeli Jew.
I'm so glad that those Germans got that freaking Jew to shut up, because otherwise something anti-Semitic might have happened.
The anti-Semitic Jew will be silent.
Yeah. We will destroy the history of the Jew, the anti-Zionist Jew. I want to point that out.
Schnell, Juden raus, respect Jewish history.
Germany will be Judenrein, but only for anti-Zionists, okay?
So according to his, I forget when in November he published the piece, but you can go look it up. It was an in-depth investigation around basically what is considered an appropriate target. Right. And he interviews a dozen sources within the Israeli military, people who are in charge of the Gaza operations, and the results are conclusive. The homes are the targets. Yeah. Okay. That was very direct in the reporting. The Israeli military.
How do you say anything in Hebrew? Kol davar, that's a legitimate target. Everything.
Yeah.
Civilian infrastructure, apartment
Zack's
blocks.
Gone. Yeah, he'll come back. I assume his internet died. Hey, he's back.
I still see him. I saw him the whole time.
Was it my internet that fucked up?
Oh, quit projecting, man.
All right. So, where were we?
So basically 972 is a very, the reporting is excellent. They just recently hired a Palestinian Israeli to run as editor in chief. It's obviously an independent publication, entirely funded by its readers and its viewers. They have a great podcast as well. So I think 972 is excellent. And they also, I think, have a partnership with the Kalkalist, I think. But basically, they are as good as it gets as far as journalism goes inside Israel. Of course, you have Arab publications as well. You have Arab Tamenu Arba'in, which is Maidan. They have an excellent podcast called Maidan, run by Abed Abu Shahadeh. And he interviews basically mostly Palestinians inside Israel, talking about issues primarily relevant to Palestinians inside Israel. And by the way, speaking of erasure, if you want to talk about erasure, I know this may have been triggering to you because this is an academic word, but what has happened to the Palestinians inside Israel has been totally remarkable. No one is talking about it, but they're being fired from their jobs in the hundreds. They're being dismissed from university in the hundreds for liking social media posts that are sympathetic to the Palestinian victims of the Israeli genocide in Gaza. That is what gets them.
Meanwhile, Anat Schwartz, who has no journalistic background and has worked for the IDF, likes a post about turning Gaza into a slaughterhouse. And what does she get to be? The lead author on a New York Times front page story about alleged mass rape by Hamas.
Yeah, written by Anat Schwartz and Scott Templeton. That's a season 5 of The Wire reference about a guy.
Give it your special touch, Anat.
Yes. I want to hear about the Dickensian aspect of the Gaza.
Well, I mean, I think what's going to happen is, as you probably, it sounds like you all have been following this reporting very closely, but what will happen is Anat Schwartz will be the scapegoat, right?
Yes, of course.
There will be no culpability because who hired Anat Schwartz? How'd she get the job in the first place?
Yeah,
she's the Judith Miller.
Yes.
She's Judith Miller.
Yes. And meanwhile, Jeffrey Gettleman, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner, gets to keep his Pulitzer. And you know who else is a Pulitzer Prize winner? Scott Templeton, season 5 of The Wire.
Right. Yeah, and his editors. And he literally said at an event, he's like, I get, I don't like to use this word evidence because evidence is almost like, it's like a legal term. My job is to tell a story and highlight people's voices.
My job is to
I'm a fiction writer, basically. I'm a novelist.
I'm a novelist.
I'm a creative artist. I'm not my responsibility is to my muse, not to the
Yeah.
facts.
You know,
By the way, Zach, I just have to say this. Zach. Your Arabic is sexy AF. Like your accent.
It's really
where did
good.
you learn to like pronounce Arabic like that? Do you
how
speak
do
the
you learn to
language?
talk good. How? Yeah.
Dude, my PhD is in Palestinian history.
Hey,
I mean, yeah, but
No, look,
you
I spent
talk so good.
I appreciate that very much. Look, the problem
there are
when you learn
PhDs who can't
Yeah.
make me too messy
No,
with their accents.
I will confess I have a fetish for languages.
Okay.
And I love languages. I especially love Arabic. And look, if you spend as many years as I spent living in the Arab Middle East, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Egypt, you're going to hopefully pick up the language. I've also spent 15, 20 years trying to learn it. So, it's been a long time in the making. But
So I'm a professional lyricist for musical theater, and I have this observation about like Hebrew for lyrics versus like modern Hebrew for lyrics versus Arabic. And you tell me if I'm right. It just sounds to me like Hebrew is just a cheat code for lyrics because everything has these suffixes, right? Every plural rhymes with every masculine plural rhymes with every masculine plural. Every feminine plural rhymes with everything. Everything ends with, a hey with like, just an aspirated, like an a sound, an ah, or it's just so easy to rhyme everything with everything, and it just doesn't sound dope. It doesn't flow. When you hear Israeli rapping, it just sounds like Dr. Seuss. When
Dr.
you hear
Seuss, I was gonna say
Arabic,
Cat in the
like
Hat.
also the rhythms of Arabic, the triplets, it just has so much more of a. Now I think biblical Hebrew has a poetic, more of a free verse poetic sensibility and in terms of imagery, and I understand it to be a very deep language, but somehow in the modern context it's like anti-lyrical to me, whereas Arabic strikes me as just a language with such flow. Am I onto anything here?
I'm trying to think of Hebrew rap. The only song I can think of is the Hadag Nachash song from like way back in the day. En Aravim and Beguim. You remember?
What about that? No, isn't that what is that?
Shirat HaStikar.
Right, but there's the really popular one since October 7th.
Oh, that one.
It has like a Lebanese Arabic title to it.
Yeah.
Habu Chabu or something like that.
Yeah, it's the one that's like calling out like Bella Hadid and Mia Khalifa.
That's right. That's right. But you have Damn, which is the very popular Palestinian rap group. Now you have Saint Levant and that younger Palestinian from Gaza who he's rapping with. So I mean, they're rapping in English as well. But
listen, I gotta defend modern Hebrew here, because here's the thing about modern Hebrew. If there's one thing we can all say about this wonderful and original language, modern Hebrew is sababa. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, your accent is quite refined there. Where did you learn the Hebrew?
Yeah, sababa. Da 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 da. Sababa. Da 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 da.
No, I don't want to diss an entire language. Like
no,
there are lovely songs in Hebrew.
Yeah.
When non-fascists speak modern Hebrew, I love the sound of it.
Me too. Same.
Like German. German is the language of Goethe.
Yeah.
And it's the language of Himmler.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it takes all kinds.
But I just noticed this thing about just the syntax of it that made Arabic sound cooler to me.
But
anyway.
before we have to wrap up soon, and I want to get to some news before we go. So today we're gonna do This Week in Headlines. So first we're gonna start off with what you guys probably already know if you have been following the news. So according to this is an article from AJ Plus. Massacre, dozens killed by Israeli fire in Gaza while collecting food aid. So more than 100 Palestinians have been killed and some 700 others wounded after Israeli troops opened fire on hundreds waiting for food aid southwest of Gaza City. Health officials say that the besieged enclave faces an unprecedented hunger crisis.
That doesn't sound right to me, Matt. The headlines I read in my Western sources called it a chaotic incident.
Yeah, no. If you read anything that is written in America and beyond, anything in the West, they've mostly described it as a snafu. and
like a Black Friday sale, or
Yes,
a run like a run on Trader Joe's,
exactly.
pre hurricane or something.
Yeah, a flash mob. It's
Gone
akin,
wrong.
akin to the knockout game. Your kids could be doing it.
They just don't teach single file lines in Palestinian
They
culture.
really don't. They really don't. As you guys all know, Israel and Zionist activists have been stopping or severely limiting the flow of food and medical and other aid going into Gaza since the war began, and way before that, as there is currently, and before then, a blockade, which has led to directly to a famine in which starving Gazans are resorting to eating animal feed, and Israel is using their desperate state of hunger as a reason why over 112 Palestinians are now dead and 750 wounded. Now, did you guys see the IDF's statement about this? If you haven't, I have it for you right here. This morning, humanitarian aid trucks entered northern Gaza. Residents surrounded the trucks and looted the supplies being delivered. As a result of the pushing, trampling, and being run over by the trucks, dozens of Gazans were killed and injured. Which
being run over by the trucks is a risk factor for many populations. When I'm being run over by the trucks.
Yeah, when you are run over by the truck, chances are there will be a wound and or injury to you or your person. So they also released this drone footage. Did you guys see the drone footage they released?
Yeah, I saw. It looks like an ant colony.
That's exactly what it looks like, and it's exactly, I believe, what they were going for in releasing this footage, because it is also completely silent. All you see is just hungry, starving Palestinians gathered together like so many ants in an ant colony.
Matt, if they had actually shot, we would see those bullets in that footage from about 600 feet up.
from 1,000 feet in the air, from
with
space.
No sound.
Yes. And this is it right here. Just, look
at those spermatozoa that they're trying.
Right. It's just the complete dehumanization, like the entire, like the footage is very clearly released for the reason of, in the, Zionist mindset of being like, look at them. Now, if you're someone who has like empathy or feelings, you're looking at that and going, wow, this looks like a fucking desperate situation. And you're watching a truck run over people and you're going, what the fuck is happening here? And the reason that they didn't release it with sound is because if you had heard it with sound, you might actually hear what was going on the ground. And I have video footage of that. So that is the IDF shooting at starving Gazans who have been, who have had all of their food aid either taken or stopped or just not given. And of course, leading to such a desperate situation in which they might come out by the thousands in order to actually get something to eat.
It also takes a huge amount of chutzpah, as Israelis would say, to describe clamoring desperately for food when you're starving as looting.
Yes. Completely.
I mean, the word looting is already racially and class coded
100%.
anytime anyone uses it, because it means the rabble is trying to take what we withhold from them and trying to get more of what they need inside of, onerous conditions. But in this case, the trucks pull up. People are literally starving, and there's a little bit of jostling, and there's some energy to the attempt to get, and you call that looting? I mean, that's.
And it's also a condition that they were put into by the IDF, by the Israeli government, by activist citizens of Israel who are blocking aid trucks, who are having little raves outside of the only entry points into Gaza. And when they're not doing that, they're just gathering in groups trying to run as far into Gaza as they can because they are settlers and they want to settle again. So clearly,
including self-described liberals in those crowds.
Yes.
Basically saying, I'm a liberal and Did you see this Israeli actress who was on some talk show and she she sort of just proudly or just baldly confesses. She's like, October 7th murdered something in me. It murdered the humanitarian impulse. I'm still a leftist in a lot of other ways, but not this. I just don't care anymore. They're just not human to me. And it was exactly, they're doing your sketch, Matt. I'm bad now. They were doing the I'm bad now sketch.
They're doing, and it's like, irony is dead at this point. I can't even be sarcastic anymore because it's too many real ghouls exist. But yeah, if you're like anybody who saw this and is not just blindly taking the word of the IDF, that what happened here is entirely the fault of the IDF shooting at people and then also running them over with the trucks. The stampede itself, is a result of being shot at. Now, when this was pointed out, when British journalist / guy who enjoys my fake British accent, Owen Jones, tweeted about the IDF massacre of Palestinians, British Israeli propagandist Elon Levy, of course, he's back again. He tweeted out, "Blood libel. These poor people killed with crush stampede. Yeah, in some cases run over by gauze and truck drivers trying to get out. David Beckham fish and chips." See, Owen would have loved. Yeah, in there. You what?
I can't even listen to Owen Jones. I can't listen to Owen Jones on 1.5 or 1.75x because the guy's accent is fucking brutal. It's like I have to like slow that shit down just to understand what he's saying.
Listen,
watch out! You're talking about a former bad Hasbara, I guess.
You're talking about a beautiful man here with a beautiful voice. But listen, all British accents.
He's really been.
Oh, he's fantastic. But I mean, I think we can all agree British accent is probably a stain upon the earth. No, it sounds great. I love British people.
I love I love the fact that in such a tiny territory, there's like 40 accents.
Yeah. There's 40 accents, and they're all just saying, "I want tea and crumpets." I'm sorry, I don't mean it. British listeners, I love you. But yes, so Elon Levy has gone on to talk about blood libel a bunch. I think blood libel has been one of those things thrown out the most in the last 5 months by, bad faith actors, Israeli propagandists, Hasbara, all of them. I mean, you see it everywhere, including my absolute favorite is when Elon Levy once again is back, and he is accusing all of South Africa of blood libel because they brought this case of genocide against Israel at the ICJ. I mean, you keep hearing it over and over again. And if you're new to Israeli propaganda, if you're new to this subject in general, you're probably confused about his characterization of things as blood libel. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new segment in town. This is a segment where I'm going to cover anti-Semitic tropes and how Israel uses them to excuse war crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Blood Libel. Blood Libel.
I thought I was clever for Lebensraum, but this is great.
Listen, my name has got a lot of ways to do puns. This is Blood Libel. Today we're talking about blood libel. What is it? What isn't it? Do you guys know what blood libel actually is? Are you familiar with it? Yeah,
it's the idea that Jews make matzah from Christian babies' plasma.
That's exactly right. So blood libel is basically
so rarely do that, only on special occasions.
Like once a year maybe.
There's so many different ways to make a recipe. It's like one variation on the recipe, and we get tarred with it for the rest of our lives. Come on.
Just a few times, a little blood, and all of a sudden people go crazy.
Blame Autolengi. I'm just reading it out of the fucking book.
It was in the Moosewood cookbook. But yeah, so blood libel is this
Moosewood.
is this old anti-Semitic canard which falsely accuses Jews of murdering Christians in order to use their blood in the performance of religious rituals or in making their matzah. It very specifically refers to Christian children who are being, taken. And having their blood harvested and then being used to, put in the Jews' matzah, which is obvious. I mean, like if you've ever tried matzah, this isn't true because matzah is very bland. It certainly doesn't have that blood texture and or flavor. So, yeah. It originally emerged in late antiquity, and it was again revived a millennium later as a Christian slander against Jews in the medieval period, and then it was revived again in modern European anti-Semitism. This has been around for thousands of years and has remained largely unchanged. The charge has remained consistent as it's about doing ritual killings to harvest blood from children and either drink it or eat it. That's the claim. That is what blood libel is. What blood libel is not, it is not when you accuse Israel of doing bad.
Doing things they did.
Yes. Just saying Israel is doing something like killing someone is not blood libel. Especially...
No, much closer to blood libel is obsessively, almost fetishistically repeating horror stories about horrific and increasingly horrific with every passing day and the telling of it, and kind of a game of broken genocidal telephone, things being done to babies just for the fuck of it, like just for kicks,
Yes.
40 beheaded babies. You debunk it, it comes back. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like ripping the baby out of a womb and then beheading that baby and beheading the mother. I mean, this idea of like this ritualistic killing, especially in this kind of like almost satanic sense, that is more akin to blood libel. And I think an even more, appropriate example, if you want to talk about what blood libel looks like, a very good example is from Yoav Gallant, who is a Knesset member and a former IDF general, who tweeted this right here in January. Those who seek justice will not find it in the operational plans found in the pockets of Nukba terrorists who were instructed to, quote, drink the blood of the Jews. So that's pretty close to blood libel, I would say.
I think every Israeli accusation is a confession. I think this is a perfect example of that.
Yes.
Whereby these genocide apologists are accusing the world of attacking Israel and thus of carrying out a blood libel, when in fact, as you correctly pointed out, Matt, the litany of lies and propaganda that Israel and its supporters have been spreading since October 7th around what happened on that day.
Yes.
Not just the 40 beheaded babies, not just a pregnant woman who had the baby ripped out and then beheaded, not just the babies in the ovens, not just the mass rape atrocities, but you have dozens and dozens of accusations hiding behind civilians, right?
Yes.
When in fact, actually in multiple instances since October 7th, we've actually have examples of Israelis using Palestinians as human shields.
Yes.
It's this litany of lies that Israel uses to genocide that really resembles the blood libel that they're accusing their detractors of.
They're also obsessed with finding things in Palestinians' pockets and bedrooms and lingerie and whatever. And here's another wire reference for you, Matt. We could do this all day.
Yes, we could.
Who was it? When Kima is now new on the homicide unit and Bunk's like, isn't that something in the Vic's hand? And she finds this rolled up thing.
Tater
and it says,
shot me.
Tater shot me. And it's just this initiation prank. Just these planted things.
Yeah. I mean, and I think what's striking about this, these kinds of accusations, and this is what's striking about blood libel in general. Well, first of all, you can't remove the blood from blood libel. The blood is the thing, and the blood, what that represents, the idea of eating the blood, drinking the blood, all that stuff, it just is satanic, monstrous behavior. And the reason that you accuse people of this is so that you can punish them for something they did not do. You can punish an entire group of people, as they did with Jews. Whenever a child went missing in a fucking town or whatever, they would say, the Jews nearby, they stole the baby and they're fucking using the blood for matzah. Like, it was a way in order to oppress and act unjustly towards Jews, in the exact same way that, for example, Ahed Tamimi was arrested recently. This was in November, and it was alleged that she had tweeted, or that she had written on Instagram, "We'll drink your blood and eat your skulls." So in reality, what actually happened was her Instagram account was hacked, as it has been for many, many years. And this was put into her Instagram and was used as a pretext to arrest her. And, you can see why you would want to arrest her if you're the IDF. Because she is one of the, at least she's known in America as someone who is a child who was fighting the occupation. And if you've ever read anything written by Ahed Tamimi, she didn't write this fucking bullshit. She did a great book with my friend Dina from AJ Plus, called "They Called Me a Lioness," and you just see from reading that book and the writing style and everything, she is far more thoughtful than "We will eat your skull." It was just, to me, it's very obvious.
Oh no, but it's kind of, I can understand it though, because she looks so much like Marilyn Manson that people might get their poetry mixed up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were just they're confusing her with Marilyn Manson. Sure.
What's interesting, Matt, about this blood libel accusation is that, obviously there was a massacre committed on October 7th, and innocent civilians were killed. But that was not. But that was known to everybody.
Yes.
For already by October 8th, everybody knew that.
Yes.
But by November, by December, after 10,000, after 20,000 Palestinians had been slaughtered, it no longer was enough for the world. They killed 764 Israeli civilians. That wasn't enough.
That heroin was stepped on at that point.
Exactly.
They needed to get that pure, that raw.
That
was just some dry swaggity cyanide weed. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And cyanide. We got that cyanide here.
Pandemic.
What's interesting as well, if you look at lynchings in the American context from the end of slavery to World War II, it was not killing that white people accused black people of. It was rape. Right?
That's
because
right.
They need to find something that is so egregious that, and rape was the most common accusation leveled against a black person for these lynchings.
Yes.
And I think that's not, and I do not think it's a coincidence that the Israeli propaganda machine curated the witnesses. The Zakat people made up so many lies.
Yes.
They made up testimonies. The eyewitnesses changed their stories multiple times.
Yes.
Raz Cohen changed his story. They fool the witnesses into telling them they're doing it about X when they do it about Y.
Right.
So they had to contrive and concoct this story.
They don't have to be that extreme. They could just do like the Southern whites did. I mean, Israelis would have the same genocidal reaction if they just said that the Palestinian militiamen burst into kibbutzim and whistled at the women.
Right, exactly.
Just do the Emmett Till thing. Just a little lighter touch. I was at Newark Airport coming back from Europe last week, and I was in the customs line with a very unhappy looking older dude in a Zaka uniform, and his very unhappy looking wife, and I just was so creeped out,
Yeah. Very.
And I was wearing my Stop the Genocide baseball cap, and
oh wow,
it's dude, to be a part of that he just looked like just an agent of evil to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that to me is just to end this portion and the podcast is a great point to make, because like you have to remember that like Hasbara are claiming these things as blood libel. Like what they are claiming is that to believe that to insinuate that a Jewish person or Israel or the Israeli government would ever do something that is cruel is anti-Semitic. And you know, if an Israeli soldier kills, it kills because it must kill. If it starves you, it's because you must starve in order to save more people. Like this whole idea, to me, of saying Jews are not capable of this and to claim that they are is anti-Semitic. I actually believe that othering of Jews in and of itself is anti-Semitic. Like humans, Jews are humans. We are capable of empathy. We are capable of cruelty. We are not special or different. The same standards apply to us as that they would apply to anybody else. And to otherize us is, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're making us subhuman or superhuman. You are othering us, and that is anti-Semitic.
Anti or philo-Semitism amounts to the same thing. But not only that, like if you wanted to generate generalized hatred towards a group, you would want them to act as obnoxiously as possible. Now, what is more obnoxious than browbeating and lecturing the world about their alleged hatred of you while you commit the most heinous crimes most people have ever seen in their lifetimes?
Yeah.
It's the most and then we wonder, why do they hate us? Of course, if they hate us, I completely understand. Now, I don't advocate it. It would be based on a misunderstanding.
Right. It would be based on the same kind of like broad racism that the Israelis like to do.
Right. But they count on it. Israel is both an anti-Semitism. It runs on anti-Semitism and it produces anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It's like the input and the output is anti-Semitism. It needs it. It manufactures it. If it can't manufacture it, it fabricates it. Yeah. But that's its entire raison d'etre and its entire lifeblood. But I have a new business idea, guys. I'm going to open a weed shop.
Ooh.
I'm going to call it Bud Libel.
Oh my God. You're making me question my sobriety.
Just please promise me you're going to carry Jack Herrera. That's all I ask. Okay, that got real serious for a hot minute. Look.
Carry what? Sorry?
Also some Jack Herrera and Afghan Kush. That's all I ask. No, but
nice.
You know, I think like even the claims of anti-Semitism are oftentimes themselves manufactured.
Yes.
You recall that back in the May 2021 war, when Israel killed something like 254 Palestinians, you know, there's always these reports, there's all the rise in anti-Semitism. But in fact, what you have instead is the ADL, the Apartheid Defense League. They basically what they do is they define anti-Semitism as criticism of Israel, and then they're like, look at all these protests against Israeli war crimes in Gaza. Hence the rise of anti-Semitism.
100%.
I couldn't believe it when I saw this new Times cover article called "The New Anti-Semitism." Literally 15 years ago, Norman Finkelstein was giving lectures and maybe even put out a pamphlet or a book about how every time Israel wants to commit a massacre, you can time it.
Yes.
The rise of quote unquote the new anti-Semitism.
At this point, it's the oldest canard in modern like anti-Semitism discourse. They've been saying it's new for at least 50 years.
Yeah, and the author of that article proudly tweeted it. Was like, I made my best attempt to give a sophisticated, nuanced rendering of the new anti-Semitism, and people were like, you failed.
Yeah.
Noah Feldman, the same guy who was brought in to help reconstruct Iraq after the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, by the way. So, that I actually did not realize he was such a genocide apologist, but here we are.
Yeah. Well, I agree with something you said, Daniel, about Israel running on anti-Semitism and, creating it as well. Anti-Semitism is to Israel as Dunkin' Donuts is to America.
As
know?
Tim Hortons is to Canada.
That's exactly right. Israel runs on anti-Semitism, and America runs on Dunkin'. Go to Dunkin' Donuts, promo code Israel is genociding. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have that sponsor.
Promo code Blood Liebel.
Blood Liebel, yes. Guys, that's been the episode. I got to go pick up my baby. Thank you guys so much, of course, for coming on. Sometimes co-host Daniel Maté, where can people find you? Bitch. I'm sorry.
Is that the opening line? Mashlom ha,
Yeah, it's Mashlom ha, bitch, a Revan Boker Tov. We invented the cherry tomato.
What I like about that line, Mashlom ha, bitch,
Yeah.
is that by saying Mashlom ha, you're
Talking to a
identifying,
guy.
you're talking to a guy. So
Yeah.
it undercuts any accusations of misogyny right out of the bat.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
And then you could also do Mashlomech, dude.
Yeah.
They can find me, Daniel B. Maté, on Twitter and Instagram. And I have 2 websites for various things I do. DanielMaté.com for musical theater, walkwithdaniel.com for my mental chiropractic service. What is that? Go find out.
Yeah, check that out. You'll see the links in the bio. Zach Foster, where can people find your work?
You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at _Zach Foster, and you can find me on my newsletter, my wonderful newsletter on Palestine. You can subscribe to, that's PalestineNexus.com, and you can find me on Instagram at Zachary __Foster __.
Yeah, check all that out. Sorry, my
Just
wife's
to underscore the point.
yeah, my wife's looking for her phone. But all right, Zach, it was wonderful having you on. You're a fantastic guest, and please come back anytime. Daniel, I love you so much. And badhasbar@gmail.com for all your questions, comments, and concerns. And I'm going to be playing a voicemails soon. I got some really good ones that I think people are going to love. Patreon.com/badhasbara. All right, thank you so much for listening, everyone. And until next time, from the river to the sea.
Breathing air, us. Drinking water, us. We invented all that shit.